June 1944. Europe trembles on the edge of liberation. For months, the Allied High Command has prepared for the largest amphibious invasion in human history. An operation that would decide the fate of the Second World War. But as tanks are loaded, ships fueled, and paratroopers briefed, one haunting question echoes through every war room. What if the Germans are waiting for them? The success of D-Day doesn't rest solely on the strength of Allied armies. It depends on deception. The Germans must believe that Normandy is a diversion. The real blow, they must think, will fall on Pas-de-Calais, the closest point between Britain and France, and the most heavily fortified. To make that lie believable, the Allies turn to a weapon unlike any other: illusion. The mastermind behind this invisible front is the London Controlling Section, a shadowy group of intelligence officers and strategists working directly under the British Chiefs of Staff. Their task: to mislead the enemy through an intricate web of fake armies, double agents, and phantom operations. The deception umbrella, codenamed Operation Bodyguard, includes multiple sub-operations: Fortitude North, Fortitude South, Titanic, and Glimmer. Each plays a part in one grand illusion meant to protect the true invasion at Normandy. At the heart of this effort stands Operation Glimmer, small in scale, but crucial in effect. Glimmer's objective is deceptively simple: create the illusion of a massive invasion fleet off the coast of Pas-de-Calais. But there's a catch. Not a single ship will actually be there. The men tasked with executing this impossible illusion belong to the Royal Air Force's 218 Squadron, flying short Stirling bombers. They are joined by elements of Coastal Command and the Royal Navy's deception units. Their tools are not guns or bombs, but strips of aluminum foil, codenamed Window. When dropped from aircraft, these metallic ribbons reflect radar waves, creating ghostly echoes on German screens. In theory, a squadron of bombers could appear to be an entire fleet of ships. In practice, it must be done with perfect timing, altitude, and direction. Any mistake could expose the ruse. On the night of June 5th, as Allied soldiers prepare to cross the Channel, Glimmer's aircrews receive their briefing. The orders are short and cryptic. They will fly low and slow, parallel to the French coast, releasing Window at precise intervals. To the enemy's radar, their path must look like a convoy advancing steadily toward land. Pilot Officer Eric Mac McDonnell later recalled, "It felt strange. We were flying into danger, but our only weapon was tin foil. We weren't to drop a single bomb. Our mission was to be seen, but never caught." Meanwhile, in Dover, Royal Navy technicians coordinate radio deception. Specially equipped boats transmit fake radar pulses and false chatter mimicking invasion traffic. Their signals bounce across the Channel, merging with the Ghost Fleet on German screens. The illusion becomes almost indistinguishable from reality. In occupied France, the Germans are already on alert. For weeks, reports have reached the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, the German High Command, warning of an imminent Allied invasion. Hitler himself is convinced the attack will come at Calais, where his formidable 15th Army stands ready. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt reinforces the sector with panzer divisions, leaving Normandy relatively underdefended. To the Allies, this German fixation is an opportunity, and Operation Glimmer is designed to exploit it. As the night deepens, RAF bombers rise into the stormy skies. Below them, the English Channel churns in darkness. In each aircraft, bundles of Window are stacked high, marked for release every few seconds. Radar operators on the French coast soon detect what seems to be a colossal convoy forming off Boulogne-sur-Mer. The fake fleet appears to be closing in, slowly, steadily, unmistakably. Inside German radar stations, confusion spreads. Operators scramble to confirm the contacts. Reports flood upward to higher command. A naval assault seems imminent. Orders are issued. Searchlights sweep the waves. Batteries load and prime. But when dawn begins to break, the Channel remains empty. There are no ships, no landing craft, no men. The deception is working, but the full magnitude of its success won't be clear for another day. At Allied headquarters, the tension is palpable. D-Day is hours away, and everything depends on the Germans taking the bait. One British intelligence officer notes in his report, "If they hold Calais for even 24 hours, we might just win Normandy." Operation Glimmer is now in motion, an illusion stitched together from radar echoes and courage, played out against the chaos of war. As the first Allied soldiers prepare to storm the beaches of Normandy, A handful of airmen are flying patterns in the dark, conjuring ghosts upon the sea. They don't yet know it, but their invisible operation will help decide the fate of Europe. And by dawn on June the 6th, the world's greatest invasion will begin, under the cover of a lie so convincing that it fools an entire army. Just before midnight, on June 5th, 1944, the skies above southern England hum with the sound of engines. Across the channel, radar operators of the German 15th Army watch their screens in tense silence. To them, the pattern forming on their scopes looks unmistakable. A vast invasion fleet moving toward Pas-de-Calais. In reality, there isn't a single Allied ship within 60 miles of the location. This illusion is the heartbeat of Operation Glimmer. The plan depends on a handful of RAF bomber crews and radar specialists executing a near-perfect performance. Each crew must fly a precise grid off the French coast, releasing strips of aluminum foil, window, in mathematical rhythm. Each piece, only a few centimeters long, reflects German radar in a way that simulates the signature of a ship's hull. Dropped continuously in sequence, the reflections mimic a slow-moving convoy approaching the shore. The aircraft involved come from RAF 218 Squadron and 199 Squadron, flying short Stirlings and Halifax bombers. Their mission briefings are chillingly clear: maintain formation, hold course, and never break radio silence. At exactly 0100 hours, the first wave crosses into enemy radar range. From the ground, it looks like a distant storm. On German radar screens, however, it looks like an armada. Sergeant James R. Lacey, a radar operator on board one of the Stirlings, later described the eerie calm of the mission. We weren't dropping bombs, we weren't fighting back, just tinfoil out the back. But we all knew, if we failed, D-Day might fail with us. While the bombers weave their ghostly pattern in the sky, Royal Navy units add another layer to the illusion. Off Dover, two small vessels, HMS Onslow and HMS Broke, are fitted with special radar transmitters designed to imitate large fleet signatures. These false echo generators pulse steadily toward the French coast, amplifying the radar illusion from the air. The signals bounce, merge, and multiply, making the phantom fleet seem even more massive and convincing. Back in France, at the German Radar Command Center in Cap Gris-Nez, confusion turns to alarm. Operators report that the fleet is advancing at a speed consistent with an amphibious invasion group. Commanders scramble to assess. Orders go out to coastal batteries and observation posts. Prepare for contact. At 0200 hours, German spotlights and search beams sweep the waters near Boulogne. Flak batteries open fire blindly into the mist. The air crews above can see the tracer fire rising toward them. But their orders are to hold steady. They cannot retaliate. Their safety depends on invisibility and the illusion that they are part of a larger force. One slip, one change in formation, and the entire operation could unravel. In an RAF report written after the war, Wing Commander R.M. Fennick noted, "Precision flying under live fire, all for an illusion." It was one of the strangest and most daring acts of the war. Meanwhile, the deception deepens. Allied intelligence feeds reinforce the ruse through the double-cross system. Britain's network of captured German spies turned double agents. Agent Garbo, one of MI5's most effective assets, transmits urgent intelligence to Berlin, warning that the real invasion force is still massing in southeast England and will strike at Calais within days. German command, already seeing radar proof of a fleet, accepts the reports as confirmation. By dawn, the results are clear. The German 15th Army is convinced an invasion is imminent at Pas-de-Calais. The 15th Panzer Division, stationed near Saint-Omer, remains in reserve, awaiting the order to counterattack. But that order never comes. Hitler himself, wary of a feint, insists on waiting for a second landing. The trap is working exactly as planned. For the men in the bombers, exhaustion begins to set in. The mission has lasted hours longer than expected. They've flown the same tight loops over the channel, dodging flak and searchlights, releasing the last of their metallic bundles. Below them, the sea reflects the faint glow of tracer fire, like lightning on dark water. One pilot writes later in his logbook, "It was like painting on the night, with light, sound, and lies." By the morning of June 6th, Operation Glimmer has fully matured. To the Germans, the Phantom Fleet now appears to have halted just outside artillery range, the classic pre-invasion position. Radio intercepts show German coastal units on full alert, ammunition depots open, troops man their posts, and command lines crackle with nervous chatter. Yet nothing happens. The fleet doesn't land. It doesn't retreat, it simply remains. As the sun rises, the fleet begins to dissolve from the radar screens. The bombers turn home, their fuel nearly spent, the sea below them empty and silent. In Calais, the German 15th Army waits, ready to repel an invasion that will never come. Far to the west, across the rough waters off Normandy, thousands of Allied soldiers are landing under heavy fire, unaware that their path has been cleared by ghosts. Operation Glimmer has brought them the most precious resource of war: time. Time for the Allies to gain ground, secure the beaches, and break through Hitler's Atlantic Wall. But the Germans still believe what their radar told them, that Calais remains the true objective. And as the real invasion unfolds, a new mystery begins to form. How long will the illusion hold? How long before the enemy realizes they've been chasing shadows? As dawn breaks on June 6, 1944, chaos reigns along the French coast. The thunder of naval guns rolls across Normandy, and the largest amphibious invasion in history is underway. Yet, in the bunkers of Pas-de-Calais, 150 miles to the northeast, German commanders remain convinced that this is not the real invasion. The deception has taken hold. Operation Glimmer, along with its companion ruses, Operation Taxable to the south and Operation Fortitude to the north, is now fully operational. Together, these deceptions weave an intricate tapestry of misinformation. But the genius of the plan lies not only in radar trickery, it lies in the psychological warfare that accompanied it. Through a symphony of fake radio traffic, double agents, and falsified intelligence, the Allies have constructed an invasion that doesn't exist. In London, the nerve centre of this deception is a small, windowless room in St. James's Square, where the London Controlling Section operates. It is here that a handful of officers, led by Colonel John Bevan, direct the greatest con in military history. Their weapon is information, and their targets are the analysts of the German High Command. The operation's success depends on the belief that the Allies would never attempt to land in rugged Normandy when Pas-de-Calais offered a shorter, more direct route to Germany. It is a lie built on logic, the most dangerous kind. The deception is strengthened by a network of double agents. Chief among them is Juan Pujol Garcia, codenamed Garbo. Pujol is a Spanish national who, through astonishing audacity and linguistic skill, has become one of MI5's most trusted assets. From his London apartment, Garbo transmits carefully crafted intelligence to German handlers in Madrid, who pass it on to Berlin. His messages speak of phantom divisions, fake supply depots, and non-existent generals. They confirm the radar sightings from Operation Glimmer, feeding the illusion that a powerful Allied army, the 1st US Army Group, FUSAG, is waiting to strike Calais under the command of General George S. Patton. In reality, Patton is in southeast England, but his army exists only on paper and in imagination. Inflatable tanks, wooden aircraft, and dummy landing craft line the fields of Kent. At night, truck convoys move in endless loops to simulate troop movements. Radio operators fill the air with scripted transmissions. Logistical chatter about fuel, ammunition, and rations for an invasion that will never happen. To German reconnaissance, the evidence seems irrefutable. The Calais attack is real, and Normandy is a distraction. Inside Hitler's headquarters at Berchtesgaden, the Führer studies intelligence briefings from the Western Front. His instincts tell him that the Normandy landings are a feint, a mere prelude to the decisive blow at Calais. "Hold the 15th Army," he orders. "Do not be deceived by Allied trickery." His words, sealed with absolute authority, will freeze German reinforcements at the wrong front for the next crucial days. Meanwhile, in the French countryside, local resistance groups, coordinated by the British Special Operations Executive, SOE, play their part in the illusion. They sabotage railway lines and cut communication cables, not only to hinder the German response to Normandy, but also to give the impression that supply lines to Calais are being prepared for an invasion. Every act of sabotage, every coded radio message becomes another thread in the grand deception. Back over the channel, the men of Operation Glimmer continue their perilous patrols. Many have no idea of the full context of their mission. They see only darkness, flak bursts, and the endless repetition of flight paths. To them, it is another night of survival. Though in truth, they are rewriting the course of the war. Each pass of their bombers sustains the illusion that keeps the German 15th Army pinned to the wrong beaches. At Allied headquarters, reports begin to confirm the deception's success. By the afternoon of June 6th, German radio traffic intercepted by Ultra, the British code-breaking program at Bletchley Park, reveals that the enemy is still anticipating a second, main invasion at Calais. Field Marshal von Rundstedt holds his armoured divisions in reserve, waiting for a phantom attack that will never come. Meanwhile, the real battle rages in Normandy, where the Allies struggle to establish a foothold under withering fire. A British intelligence note dated June 7th reads, "Enemy has not yet reinforced Normandy sector. 15th Army remains static at Calais. Deception apparently holding." The understatement conceals the enormity of what has just been achieved. Thousands of Allied lives, perhaps tens of thousands, have been spared because of an illusion crafted from foil, whispers, and fear. But as D-Day progresses into its second day, tension rises among Allied planners. How long can they maintain the deception before the Germans realize their mistake? Each hour gained is a victory. Each delay by the enemy buys time for the Allies to pour men and material into Normandy. For now, the illusion holds strong. From Berlin to Calais, German commanders wait anxiously for the second wave, the real invasion, that Hitler is certain must come. They do not yet know that they are waiting for ghosts. Operation Glimmer has done more than create confusion. It has exploited the enemy's own beliefs, turning German logic against itself. And as history will show, deception can be as decisive as any weapon fired in anger. But the operation's architects still face a critical question. Can an illusion, once begun, survive the scrutiny of daylight? The next hours will test whether Operation Glimmer can hold long enough for the Allies to secure the beaches, or whether the lie will dissolve under the heat of discovery. Dawn on June 6, 1944, D-Day. Across the beaches of Normandy, Allied soldiers struggle ashore under a storm of German gunfire. Every inch of sand is bought with blood, yet far to the northeast, at Pas de Calais, the guns are silent. The men of the German 15th Army remain fixed in position, awaiting an invasion that does not exist. Operation Glimmer, the Phantom Fleet, continues to haunt their radar screens. At 04:30 hours, the last of the RAF bombers from 218 and 199 squadrons begin their final deception runs over the channel. Their orders are unchanged: maintain course, maintain speed, and continue to drop window in steady intervals. The aluminum strips scatter in the wind and drift toward the sea, shimmering like snowflakes in the pale morning light. To the German operators manning Würzburg and Freya radar stations along the Calais coast, the echoes remain consistent, an advancing fleet holding steady just outside artillery range. At Cap Gris-Nez, Lieutenant Hans Müller stares at the radar scope, frowning. The screen shows hundreds of contacts, dense, slow-moving, deliberate. "They're waiting for daylight," his superior mutters. "They'll strike soon." Reports are dispatched up the chain of command. The Phantom Armada has achieved a strange kind of reality. Men can almost feel it. Unbeknownst to Müller, what he sees are just reflections of tinfoil drifting over open water. But the illusion is complete because the enemy wants to believe it. For weeks, Allied intelligence has reinforced this expectation through Agent Garbo's reports and Fortitude's Phantom Army under Patton. The Germans believe the Normandy landings are a diversion, a lure meant to draw them away from the real invasion at Calais. At 06 hours, the first landing craft hit Omaha Beach. Yet in Hitler's command headquarters at Berghof, the Führer refuses to release the panzer divisions stationed in reserve. "This is the feint," he insists. "The main blow is still to come." His words, driven by mistrust and paranoia, echo across the chain of command, immobilizing the very units that could have crushed the Allies in those critical first hours. Meanwhile, Glimmer's second phase begins. Two Royal Navy motor launchers, ML443 and ML466, patrol the waters off Dover. Their decks are fitted with a device called Moonshine, a radar jammer that sends amplified signals mimicking those of a large warship. When combined with the window echoes from the air, these transmissions make the illusion of the invasion fleet nearly perfect. To German radar, it now appears that the Allies are assembling battleships and landing craft in formation, directly opposite Calais. Inside the German coastal defense bunkers, the tension mounts. Reports from reconnaissance aircraft claim to have sighted naval silhouettes on the horizon, mere tricks of light on the water. Battery commanders request permission to open fire. The order never comes. Higher headquarters instructs them to hold position until the enemy fleet moves closer, but that moment never arrives. By mid-morning, British intercept units monitoring German radio chatter at Bletchley Park note a strange pattern. Enemy communication lines are overloaded with confusion. The Germans are sending constant updates on a fleet that doesn't exist. They're chasing shadows, one analyst writes in the margin of an ultra-decrypt, and the shadows are winning. As the day progresses, reports from Normandy grow increasingly urgent. Allied troops have secured beachheads at Sword, Juno, and Gold. American forces are pushing inland from Utah and Omaha. Yet German high command remains divided. Field Marshal von Rundstedt, commanding the Western Front, pleads for reinforcements. Hitler refuses. He's convinced that Normandy is merely a decoy, that the main invasion, the one aimed at Calais, will come within the next 48 hours. In the skies above the Channel, the RAF deception crews begin to withdraw. Many of them have been flying for nearly 12 hours. Their fuel gauges dip dangerously low. One Sterling bomber, damaged by flak, limps back across the sea trailing smoke. The crew makes it to England just as their engines cut out. They ditch on a grassy field in Kent and survive. Their mission, though largely invisible, is one of the most critical of the war. That afternoon, as German reconnaissance aircraft sweep the skies over Calais, they find nothing. The sea is empty, the radar echoes have faded, but the damage is already done. Not physical damage, but psychological. The Germans have lost faith in their own senses. Their radar, their intelligence, their commanders, all have been deceived. By evening, the Allies have landed nearly 150,000 troops in Normandy. Still, the 15th Army sits idle near Calais, waiting for an invasion that will never come. Hitler's second strike never materializes, but the belief persists for days. Even on June 9th, German staff reports describe strong enemy concentrations opposite Calais, a ghost force conjured by Operation Glimmer. The success of the operation is invisible, yet immense. By creating uncertainty and hesitation, it bought the Allies the time they needed to establish a foothold in France. Every minute that German tanks stayed parked at Calais meant fewer reinforcements rolling toward the beaches of Normandy. But in the quiet corridors of British intelligence, there is no celebration. The men and women of the London controlling section understand that the illusion must continue. If the Germans realize the truth too soon, the counterattack will come with devastating force. For now, Operation Glimmer remains a secret victory, a battle fought without bullets, won through deception, discipline, and the mastery of illusion. Yet, as the Allies push deeper into France, one haunting question lingers. How long can a lie survive in the fog of war before it becomes truth in the enemy's mind? By June 7, 1944, the beaches of Normandy are secured, barely. The Allied bridgeheads are fragile, the dead lie thick along the tide, and the outcome of the invasion still hangs in the balance. Yet across the Channel, the German 15th Army remains frozen in place at Pas-de-Calais. They wait for an invasion that will never come. The reason? A handful of airmen and intelligence officers who fought a battle of illusion and won. Operation Glimmer's success has turned into a paradox. The mission is over, but its effects continue to shape the battlefield. For the British airmen who executed the deception, their work has gone unrecognized, unrecorded, and largely unknown. Many return to their airfields exhausted and silent, unaware that their mission has saved thousands of lives. At RAF Methwold and Stradishall, pilots and crew of 218 Squadron gather for debriefing. They look out of place, weary men surrounded by half-empty fuel drums and scattered bundles of aluminum foil. Wing Commander Leonard Dennis, who oversaw parts of the mission, records in his log, "It is peculiar to have flown into danger without ever firing a shot, but the silence we bought may have been worth more than all the noise in France." Each pilot's story is a study in discipline and endurance. They flew heavy, slow-moving bombers, easy targets for German radar and flak, yet could not deviate from their patterns, even under fire. Squadron leader Harold "Mac" McGowan described one harrowing pass. "You could see the flak bursts in your windscreen like black puffs. The instinct is to turn, climb anything, but the order was clear. Hold the line, or the illusion breaks." He and his crew continued their run for nearly an hour under direct fire, dropping bundles of window into the dark sea below. The human cost of these operations, though rarely acknowledged, was real. 2 aircraft from the Glimmer operations were damaged by flak and forced to crash land upon return. 1 bomber was lost over the channel. Its crew of 7 never recovered. Their names would later be added quietly to the memorials of Bomber Command, without any mention of the secret mission that took them. In London, intelligence officers of the London Controlling Section review the first Ultra intercepts confirming Glimmer's success. German High Command still believes the Normandy landings are a feint. Hitler's personal adjutant, Major General Rudolf Schmundt, reports to his Führer that the main Allied invasion is expected within the week at Calais. The deception holds perfectly. But in the background of these triumphs lies the quiet heroism of the few who made it possible. The ghost makers, as one intelligence officer called them, worked in silence. Their victories were invisible by design. Major Jasper Maskelyne, the stage magician who served as a consultant for camouflage and deception, once wrote, "The greatest trick is the one that leaves no applause." Among these silent figures was R.V. Jones, the British scientist who had perfected radar countermeasures. His innovations in window technology turned what began as a simple curiosity, strips of foil confusing radar, into one of the most effective defensive tools in the war. Jones later reflected that our success depended entirely on the enemy's trust in his instruments. Operation Glimmer had weaponized that trust. As the Allies pressed inland, the myth of a second invasion at Calais deepened. The fictitious 1st US Army Group, supposedly commanded by Patton, continued to exist in German reports. Even days after D-Day, Luftwaffe reconnaissance pilots reported large convoys forming in British ports. Convoys that were, in fact, rows of inflatable landing craft and wooden decoys. Operation Fortitude South, the broader deception umbrella under which Glimmer operated, ensured that the Germans remained blind to reality for more than 2 weeks. But secrecy came with a cost. The aircrews who risked their lives to create these illusions were bound to silence. Most never knew how effective their mission had been. Their actions went unmentioned in communiqué, their logs redacted or destroyed. The official line described the missions merely as special operations in support of D-Day. One surviving Glimmer pilot, in a BBC interview decades later, said, "We didn't think of it as heroic. We thought of it as odd, fighting a war by pretending to fight one." The deception continued to ripple through German command long after the skies cleared. On June 9th, the 15th Panzer Division remained idle near Calais, awaiting orders that never came. The German High Command, paralyzed by its own caution, kept its strongest units from reinforcing Normandy. By the time the truth became clear, it was too late. The Allies had already broken through. In the shadow of D-Day's triumph, Operation Glimmer faded into obscurity. Its details were classified for decades, buried in the archives of the War Office. When finally declassified, historians were stunned by how few had known of its scale or its success. For those who took part, recognition would come too late. Many of the men were gone, their stories unrecorded, their courage uncelebrated. Yet their work had reshaped the course of history. Without Glimmer's ghostly fleet, the German counterattack might have reached Normandy within hours. Instead, it was delayed by days. Their silence became their legacy. Their reward was the victory they helped secure, unseen, unsung, but enduring. And as the smoke of battle cleared over France, one question lingered in the minds of those who had engineered the deception. Would the truth ever be told? Or would Operation Glimmer remain one of the great invisible victories of the Second World War? When the guns of Europe finally fell silent in May 1945, the world began to count its losses and tell its stories. Yet among the millions of words written about the war, one tale remained buried beneath secrecy and silence. The story of Operation Glimmer, a phantom fleet that never sailed, a battle that never happened, and a deception that saved countless lives without firing a single shot. For nearly 30 years, the details of Operation Glimmer remained classified. Those who had flown the missions were sworn to secrecy. Even their families never knew the truth. They were simply told that their husbands and sons had taken part in support operations during D-Day. It was not until the 1970s, when wartime archives began to open, that historians pieced together the invisible web of lies and illusions that had shadowed the Normandy invasion. Declassified memos revealed how British intelligence had constructed an entire campaign of deception, from the grand scale of Operation Fortitude to the pinpoint precision of Glimmer. What seemed like small, isolated efforts, the dropping of foil from bombers, fake radio chatter, ghost ships transmitting radar signals, were in fact part of one of the most sophisticated psychological operations in history. The aim was simple, yet daring, to make the enemy believe in a false reality so convincingly that they would act upon it. The Germans did. For nearly 2 weeks after D-Day, Hitler's 15th Army remained positioned at Pas-de-Calais, awaiting the main invasion. German field reports from June 10th still describe concentrations of enemy shipping opposite Calais, though by then, those echoes were long gone. It was not until June 18th, 12 days after the landings, that the German command finally ordered major units south. By then, the Allied breakout from Normandy had begun. The delay was fatal for the Third Reich's western defenses. In a secret memorandum written after the war, General Dwight D. Eisenhower acknowledged the vital role of deception. Without the success of our disinformation and radar operations, the enemy's armored reserves would have reached Normandy within hours. Instead, they arrived when it no longer mattered. His words, understated but profound, marked one of the few official recognitions of Operation Glimmer's significance. Still, for decades, few outside military intelligence circles even knew the name. The pilots who dropped window over the channel returned home quietly, blending into peacetime life. Some took factory jobs, others stayed in the RAF. Their mission, one of perfect invisibility, seemed destined to vanish into history itself. One surviving airman, interviewed late in life, smiled wistfully when asked about the operation. "We fought the war with ghosts, and for once, the ghosts were on our side." The full scale of Britain's wartime deception network is still staggering to historians. Under the guidance of Colonel John Bevan and Sir Ronald Wingate, the London Controlling Section turned falsehood into strategy. It built phantom armies, forged intelligence leaks, and manipulated enemy logic until truth and illusion were indistinguishable. Operation Glimmer was among its smallest operations by manpower, but its precision and timing made it one of the most effective. A single night's deception bought the Allies crucial days of advantage, days that changed the course of history. The legacy of Glimmer lives on not only as a tactical victory, but as a lesson in the nature of warfare itself. It showed that intelligence and imagination could defeat brute strength. That victory could be achieved not only by fire and steel, but by fear, patience, and control of information. In modern military academies, Glimmer and its sister operations are studied as case studies in strategic deception, early examples of what would later be known as psychological warfare. Even today, fragments of the operation remain shrouded in mystery. The exact flight paths of certain RAF squadrons are still marked restricted in British archives. Some technical details of the radar manipulation systems, the moonshine and mandrel devices, are still partially redacted. For historians, these gaps only add to the operation's allure. How much of what the Germans saw that night was radar interference, and how much was psychological projection, born from their own expectations? The answer may never be fully known, yet in the end, perhaps that ambiguity is fitting. Operation Glimmer was never meant to be seen or celebrated. It was meant to be believed. And it was. In a quiet corner of England's Lincolnshire countryside, where old airfields have returned to grass, a small memorial stone now bears the names of the RAF crews who flew those strange, silent missions. Few who pass by would know that these men once conjured the ghosts that shielded D-Day. But for those who do, the message engraved on the plaque carries a simple truth. Their courage was invisible, but their impact was immense. As the documentary closes, we return to the cold, dark waters of the English Channel. The waves roll endlessly, erasing all trace of the night when illusions ruled the sea. No ships remain, no radar echoes linger, only the story endures. Operation Glimmer, a battle of shadows that fooled an empire, shaped the destiny of Europe, and proved that in war, sometimes the greatest victories are the ones that never happened.